yourself?
I'm Will Cook. I'm one of the football beat writers for the Daily Californian starting this year. This is my first year doing it.
So obviously 2020 did not go anywhere near as planned. I think a lot of Cal fans, us included, are pretty much just going to erase that completely from our memories. I think there are certain things you can take from it, but overall the season was just so wacky that I don't think it was a great indication of what is to come. Some people might feel otherwise, but let's start with you, Will. What are your expectations for Cal in 2021? Because there does seem to be a sense of slight optimism around Berkeley and around the team, but on a national scale and even a Pac-12 scale, Cal's not getting much attention, not anywhere close to the predictions some outlets had for 2020. So what do you think?
Yeah, and I think that's totally fair. Like you said, all of the 2020 season was, I think it can be written off. If I'm Justin Wilcox, I'm not talking about that. That's a one-off kind of year. And now, Bill Musgrave's had the offense now for 2 years. Chase Garber, they're not going to have a shortened playbook like they did last year when they had, basically 3, 4, or 5 weeks to learn the playbook in full. So expectations should be higher this year. Seeing as it is Cal, I don't think expectations should be that high. I'm thinking anywhere between 5-7 and 7-5, maybe with a bowl win at the end of the season is my prediction. I'm going to say 6-6, maybe with a bowl loss. We'll see. But yeah, I just think Cal's non-conference schedule is pretty tough. Maybe not for other schools, but for Cal, Nevada, and TCU, Sac State, not so worried about them, but Nevada and TCU are worrisome.
Both of those to me could be toss-ups, and it's going to be unique to see because Justin Wilcox is undefeated in regular season non-conference play, but that could easily change this year.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think I'm optimistic about the Nevada game. And we'll get to that. But playing away at TCU, I think it'll be tough. They've got an experienced quarterback now in Max Duggan. He's been starting since their freshman year. I just think, playing away at a Big 12 school, and they have high expectations too. So I think that'll be a tough test.
Yeah, for me, if we're jumping straight into record predictions, I think this is funny because I'm now a little bit more of the optimistic one on Bear Dash because I don't know if y'all remember, but Jasper last year went out on a whim and made some CFP predictions for Cal in 2020, which clearly did not come anywhere near coming true. But I would say that my record prediction, I was teetering between 7-5 and 8-4, but I'm going to stick with 7-5 just because, like you said, the schedule does have some tough spots. I think I am a little bit more optimistic about how Cal will play against the better teams. I think they'll win at least one out of the 3 games against USC, UW, and Oregon. It just happens every year. Justin Wilcox has won a non-conference game, and every year he's been not a non-conference game, won a game against a ranked opponent, and every single year he's been at Cal. So I don't see that trend stopping anytime soon. And then I think Cal will probably split between Stanford and UCLA. Just those games are always toss-ups, rivalry games like that. And then out of the remaining 7 games, they're likely favored against Nevada, Sac State, Colorado, and Arizona. And then the rest are all toss-ups. So could this team win 8 or 9 games? Sure. Could they win 5 or 6? Sure. I mean, it's so hard to tell before the season starts, and that's, I guess, the beauty of college football is everyone is usually a little overly optimistic about their teams heading into the season.
Yeah, and actually, like I wrote for a season shoot around at the Daily Cal, Cal is one of those teams where you might swap a loss at Arizona for a win at Washington or Oregon.
Exactly.
kind of the kind of team Cal has been over the last few years. So I'm not sure what we're going to get out of him.
Yeah. What would you say, like, this is going to decide how the season goes as a whole? Because for me, it completely hinges on how the offense plays. Because I think at this point in Coach Wilcox's tenure, we know what we're getting out of the defense. They're going to consistently be in that top third of the Pac-12, limit big plays, get big stops when they need to. They're going to be stout against the pass. But the X factor this season, in my opinion, is really going to be how the offense can improve after being at the bottom of the Pac-12 for pretty much the past 3 seasons, and that's going to be determined a lot in part by Bill Musgrave's ability to out scheme a lot of talented Pac-12 defenses like UW, Oregon, teams like that. And like I said earlier, I don't think 2020 was a fair indicator at all of how his playbook is going to look this season, or how Garbers is going to play, or frankly anything, because there were games the entire offensive line was out and things like that where you just can't really judge based on how 2020 went. But I want to hear from you. What do you think is going to determine how the season plays out?
Yeah, no, and I'll agree with you. I think it will be the offense. We, like you said, we know what we get out of the defense. I think the passing game, more specifically, will be important. With Mike Safell retiring for medical reasons, I believe he was second team All Pac-12, our only player on Cal to make an All Pac-12 team. I think we had 4 or 5 honorable mentions. But certainly how the passing game evolves under Musgrave, I think expectations will be high for Chase Garbers. Now that he's been starting for 4 years, this will be his 4th year as a starter. The experience is there.
Yeah, I think a lot of people forget, not to interrupt you, but I think a lot of people forget that Chase Garbers, when he played a full game in 2019, Cal was 7-0, and I feel like a lot of people kind of disregard that because of how 2020 went, and also the injury concerns with him are fair. I mean, that's going to be something to watch for this season, but he's a guy who wins football games. Like, I think he's tied for first with DTR at UCLA for most wins out of current quarterbacks in the Pac-12, or he's a close second. And yeah, like you just mentioned, experience. I don't think that's something that's going to be discounted this season, because Cal is absolutely one of the most experienced teams in the Pac-12 in terms of returning starters.
Yeah, like you said, all the elements are there for a winning football team, a team that could challenge for a Pac-12 North title, be in the championship game, could very well end up, like I said, 5-7, and having a really disappointing year. So it could be anywhere in there. And I also think with the defense, we're just kind of assuming that they'll perform. Brett Johnson's gone. I think that's a huge missing piece. It's one player, but he was extremely productive for Cal. And so it'll be interesting to see him replaced. And then also Quan Dang moving from inside linebacker to outside linebacker. Linebacker core is going to be loaded this year between Dang, Yusefa, Cameron Good's going to be great. So not worried about it, but there are some changes. So just, I think we should still be wary of those.
Yeah, and that's a good segue to our next topic, which is delving a little bit more into the individual players that could be difference makers for Cal this season. So you mentioned the loss of Brett Johnson, and I want to kind of give my pick for defensive MVP. Maybe not MVP, because I think on paper, Cam Good, someone like him, or Dang, or Elijah Hicks, those are like the proven players who kind of make the more highlight worthy plays. But for me, Luke Beckett is going to be huge for Cal, and he has been for 4 years. For those of you who don't know, this is his 7th year of college football. He was at Cal for 5 of those years, and then transferred to Boston College last year to try to play some football during the COVID season, which worked out for him. He played more than 4 games, but he used his extra year of eligibility to come back to Cal. And, after that Brett Johnson injury, the defensive line was looking like a major trouble spot for the team, because there's a lot of youth at that position, and they had a rough 2020. And, when that injury news came out, it was a car accident, not even a football related injury. it really affected a lot of people's perception on how the defense as a whole would play in 2021. But with Beckett coming back, he provides not only a wealth of experience, but a leader to those young guys. He has 130 tackles and 10 sacks during his 4 seasons at Cal. Pac-12 all preseason honorable mention, and he's a guy who can play nose guard or defensive end. He's listed currently on the end, but we'll see if they move him around or not. And kind of like Johnson, I feel like he's someone who at least warrants the possibility of getting double teamed. He's not someone you can just completely ignore. So I think he's going to be a major factor this season. And if Brett Johnson does come back, which there's, rumors that he might later on in the season, but obviously they're not going to rush him back. And I don't think anyone's expecting him to come back, but he said himself that he hasn't ruled it out. So if they were both on that line at the same time again, ooh, that would be exciting.
That would be. Yeah, I'm not.
But yeah, on your end, I want to hear.
Yeah, like you said, not worried about the defense. Luke Beckett is going to be, I think, a monster this year, and maybe not, lighting up the stat sheet, but definitely he's someone opposition defenses are going to just have to take note of. We'll see about double team. If he's that good, I'll be really excited.
They got to double team someone.
Yeah,
if they're sending 4 and they have 5 offensive linemen.
For sure. Yeah, it'll be him or someone. But I think I'll go with Cam Good for defensive player of the year. I'll go that route. Yeah, he was great last year, even with the shortened season. I believe he had 3 sacks just through 4 games, 8 tackles for loss,
which is insane over 4 games.
Is nuts. So just, if he can keep that production going through a 12-game season, 13-game season, he is going to be, one of the best outside linebackers in the draft. I think he's capable of that. We'll see if he can keep up that production. Last year, and like we said, total fluke year. So we don't really know how much stats from last season are going to tell us. But Cam Good, I think, is going to be the leader of Cal's defense this year, and just a big player.
Yeah, and Cal's going to be facing a lot of talented quarterbacks, a lot of younger quarterbacks, but also a lot of proven quarterbacks like Carson Strong coming up, and he's going to be instrumental, Cam Good, in creating pressure, collapsing the pocket, and if he's not playing well, or if he's not able to stay on the field, he's had injury concerns in the past, that's going to be a real shot in the foot to Cal. But let's move to the offensive side. I know we've mentioned a few players. Who are you looking for to stand out on offense?
Yeah, I think Nico Remigio is going to have a big year. Also because I'm confident Garbers will as well. I think he made some big plays in the big game 2 years ago now. He's going to be ready. So I'm really excited, really just overall what this wide receiver core can do. I'm excited to see if even if the freshman can get some playing time. J. Michael Sturdivant, huge.
Also Maven Anderson, he's a freshman who's been getting some looks in camps, according to word on the street.
Yeah, no, he has looked really good in camp. So I think with that combination of Garber's experience, and then you got Remigio, who I think will have a big year, maybe the biggest year in the wide receiver core. I'm excited to see what the passing game can do. Nico Remigio, being that star.
That's good. I like this because we have two different takes on how this offense is going to be led. I think that if Cal even wants to have a chance of having a complete passing attack where the receivers are getting single coverage looks and Garbers is able to move the ball down the field, I think it's going to start with the run game, and that's something that Cal has had success with in the past, at least more so than throwing. And there's a lot of quality candidates for offensive player on the year, maybe not as much as other Pac-12 schools, but for me, I want to see Cal pound the rock, which will in turn help open up the throwing game. And I think the 3-headed monster of Damien Moore, Christopher Brooks, who was formerly Christopher Brown Jr., CBJ. I might slip up on that a couple times, but Christopher Brooks and Marcel Dancy, those three guys, they all bring a little something different to the table. And I can't pick one because I truly do think it's going to be a by committee type of thing. I think maybe like 40-40-20 in terms of how they get split right now. Damien Moore was listed as the starting running back for this season, which is something that I think surprised a lot of people, including me. I thought their carries would be relatively close to even because Moore earned it last season. But I mean, seeing Christopher Brooks listed second was a bit of a surprise because even though he had an injury riddled 2020 and never seemed to be 100%, people forget that he was one of the top running backs in the Pac-12 in the 2019 season. That year he had over 1,000 combined yards, rushing and receiving, and over 10 touchdowns. I think 12 touchdowns it was. So, he's that big bruising back. He throws a nasty stiff arm. He's definitely going to be utilized, I think, closer to the red zone and the goal line. But Damien Moore, as a true freshman in 2020, showcased a little bit of a different skill set. He had a really strong vision and was able to find holes and really accelerate through them. And, I think he's a guy who also adds some more versatility because he wasn't just that type of player. He did showcase some physicality and he averaged just about 5 yards per carry. So, I mean, you can't ask for much better than that. And then third string, Marcel Dancy, he's extremely quick, shifty, change of pace back who has literally won a couple games for Cal in the past, just through his play alone. So I think he's a great third option, and I'm really eager to see how Bill Musgrave uses all three of these players because I think if Cal's going to be successful on offense, it's going to start with running the ball.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. The running game will be important. I think the running game will be strong this year, which will help the passing game, and it'll be strong because Cal returns 4 starters:
right.
Daltoso, Mateer, Cindric, Coleman, Will Craig got a lot of playing time last year. Safel is gone, so that'll be interesting to see how they replace him. But the O-line should be solid this year, which great news for Brooks, Dancy, and Moore. I'm sure they'll be stoked to get started.
Yeah, it's definitely nice also having an offensive line that even if they haven't been necessarily full-time starters in the past, they've all, with the exception of Ben Coleman, have had a ton of quality snaps and have played a lot of football. So they know what they're getting into. And I agree that they're going to be able to, I think, provide a solid foundation for this offense. And then I think I just want to add quickly a couple dark horse candidates who might stand out, moving maybe towards the middle to latter half of the season as they kind of adjust to the speed of the game. But I think Mo Iosefa at linebacker is someone who really, he showcased a lot of potential. He played in all 4 games as a true freshman in 2020, earning a start in the Oregon game, I believe. And he just showed a knack for sniffing out ball carriers, being around the ball, which is what you want out of any inside linebacker. I mean, that's something that Evan Weaver was fantastic at. It seemed like every time there was a pile, Evan Weaver was at the bottom of it. But with that being said, Iosefa is definitely a different type of player than Weaver. He's a little bit more rangy, not as much of a downhill guy, but I'm interested to see how he fills in for Coin Dang because, like you said, he's moving to outside linebacker. So I think Iosefa is a player who could really stand out in the middle.
Yeah, and I think he started 2 games last year. So he's got some playing experience. He's not going in totally cold. So I'm excited to see what he does. I'm also excited, on the other side of the ball. Like I said, I think passing game's going to be great. I think Jake Tonjes is someone who could have a great year. Just that whole tight end room, I think is great. Him and Colin Moore, I think are 2 players on offense who could have kind of surprising years, maybe be up there with some of the Pac-12's best tight ends. So I'm excited to see what they do. I'm hoping that Wilcox decides to play Jermaine Terry for in a few games, maybe not waste his red shirt. But I'd love to see him out in the field. And maybe, yeah, maybe not be obviously one of Cal's perennial. We won't be in the lineup a whole lot, but I think he could impress for sure.
If any of those guys can get anywhere near Tony Gonzalez, like you wrote your feature about, if you guys haven't read that, go check it out. It's amazing. But yeah, I mean, Cal it's been a while since we've had a tight end like Tony Gonzalez, so I would take any of those. But yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, if any one of them turns out to be a Hall of Famer, I'll be stoked. I don't think that's gonna be the case, but maybe get on some NFL draft boards. That'd be cool.
Yeah, you never know. But with us winding down here, let's get to the main event, which is tomorrow night in Berkeley. The Nevada Wolfpack coming to town. Like we said earlier, this is a game that is not like some other non-conference games where it's going to be, a complete beatdown from either team. I think this is a game that could very well go into the fourth quarter, as a one possession game. But what are some of your keys to Cal's opener versus Nevada?
Yeah, I think one right off the top of my head is getting to Carson Strong. He's one of the most highly rated quarterbacks. He'll be one of the most highly rated quarterbacks in next year's draft class.
Seeing Sports Illustrated mock him going number 1 was something that I had no idea it was even in like the realm of possibilities.
Yeah, I had no clue either. I also didn't know he's from Vacaville, and grew up going to Cal games. He never got an offer from Cal, so I'm hoping he doesn't go on a little revenge tour tomorrow. But he's definitely talented enough to do so. Might come back to bite Cal in the butt. But so just getting to Carson Strong, I think the Cal's secondary is good enough to lock up some of Nevada's wide receivers. So it's just up to Beckett, Good, Dang to get to Strong and put him on his back a few times early. He's suffered. He's had a knee injury in preseason that they're monitoring. Yeah, if we can get to him, I think Cal's in a good spot.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely something to monitor, his knee injury, because he's never known as like a super mobile quarterback, but even just maneuvering like within the pocket, I'm interested to see if there's any like hesitancy in his game or if he looks uncomfortable at all. But I mean, it is also the first game of the season, so I think both teams, in some sense, are going to look uncomfortable, especially on offense. Like it may take a few drives to get the Cal offense going. In some seasons, it's taken a few games to get the Cal offense going. But yeah, that's definitely going to be, I think, a deciding factor in the game. Obviously, is getting pressure on Carson Strong, and then for me, I think one of the major ones is creating explosive plays. And that's something that Cal has really struggled with over the past few years. We saw glimpses of it last year, especially in the Oregon State game. But Nevada has struggled with limiting big play opportunities. And they have a defense that's very experienced, but last year they were just about average on paper. And, I really am eager to see who becomes Cal's new deep threat in the passing game, because Mekhi Polk kind of played that role last year, a speedster, but he transferred to Mississippi State. So now that role's kind of vacant. We've seen Remigio and Keikoa Crawford get involved in some of those deep plays, but neither of them have kind of stood out with that being their role. And same thing on the ground. Damien Moore had, a few chunk runs last year, but nothing was consistent on the Cal offense. So if they can consistently get down the field, that's something that, obviously helps you win any football game, but something against a mediocre Nevada defense, that's definitely something I'm looking out for.
Yeah. And I think, like you said, with the run game earlier, one of those three backs is going to have to show some breakaway speed, because, of the three, maybe Dancy has that capability of really getting a big run. But but of Brooks and Moore. Great at breaking tackles, great vision, but I haven't seen that kind of top speed to really bust open some big runs. So hopefully one of those three backs can start doing that.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think I just get the vibe for reasons I said earlier about kind of the rust on offense. I, for some reason, think this is going to be more of a defensive game, even though Nevada's supposed to have a really good offense on paper. I mean, Romeo Dubs, their star receiver, had 1,000+ receiving yards, and him and Cole Turner, their tight end, combined for 18 touchdowns, which is absurd. So, that's definitely their strong suit, but Cal's strong suit has always been during the Justin Wilcox era, their pass defense. I mean, there were times, obviously, a lot of these players are gone, but there were times where Sports Illustrated was calling Cal the best secondary in the country, and there's still players from that secondary starting this season. So it's going to be interesting to see how that kind of strength on strength matchup fares. But yeah, with that being said, let's get to some score predictions. I think relative to other Pac-12 games, my score prediction of 23-20 Cal is relatively low scoring. I'm leaning towards Cal just because, like I said, pass defense has always been a strong suit in the Wilcox era. The Bears definitely struggle a lot more with teams that have very dynamic rushing attacks, and Nevada's just not that type of team. And then a couple other reasons. Wilcox has been very good against non-conference opponents, which are always to start the season. So I think he does a good job of getting the team ready to go. A lot of teams in college football especially come out pretty flat, but that's never been the case, and I'm interested to see if it is this year. And then I think home field advantage is going to be a bigger factor than most years coming off of COVID. And apparently the student pass football combo tickets are sold out. So that's something I'm very surprised about. But I don't know how many fans are expected at the game, but I think, if the crowd can get loud, that's something that'll definitely give the team some hype and maybe get them going.
Yeah, I definitely think anything, if it's loud tomorrow, Nevada could be quite surprised. I think I would be surprised myself. Memorial never gets too loud, and I don't think that's something Nevada will be thinking about. So if the noise catches them off guard, that could really help Cal, I think. I mean, I don't think it will, and I also think Nevada does enough. I think their offense will be good enough to beat us. So 27, I'll go 27-17 Nevada. I think our passing offense will look better. In the red zone, maybe we'll struggle. And I think Nevada does enough with Strong. And their running game maybe opens up some opportunities for the passing game. So I think Nevada will take this one.
All right. Well, we'll see who's right next week. That's about all the time we have for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Check out Dashboards TV on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And I think I speak for all of us. Welcome back, college football.